My name is Tibbetts, third grade. This is my grandpa. He served in the Navy. My name is Olivia Friedrich, and I'm in Miss Kim's 4th grade class. And this is my...
I went into the Navy. I was sent back to Philadelphia for schooling, and then I went aboard a carrier. I spent 1962, 1963, 1964, and 1965. I was on a carrier. That carrier is sitting over in Bremerton right now. It's in what they call a mothball fleet. That's how far back it goes. We spent time in San Diego. We spent time in Long Beach, Hawaii, Japan, the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam. And there's a few other countries that I can't even remember anymore. It's been so long since I was out.
I actually started in Colorado at the Air Force Academy. I didn't really like being in the Air Force, so I switched to the Navy back in 1999. And so I used to work on ships, like Nadia's grandpa, but smaller ships called frigates and destroyers, and cruisers. And then for about 3.5 years, then I switched specialties. So I'm what the Navy calls a cryptologist now. And we lived in Japan for almost 11 years, Nuri's mom and I. And she was born in Japan. But at the time we lived in California, so Nuri's mom flew back. But I've deployed 4 times to the Persian Gulf. I've been to Afghanistan for a year. And I'll be deploying next June, my next time.
Any questions you'd like to ask us? Anybody want to ask us any questions?
Go ahead, Finley.
How long did you serve?
Me? 4 years.
I've been in 21 years total so far, and I'm still going.
You said you were in the Air Force. Are you still in the Air Force now?
Nope. Quit the Air Force, switched to the Navy.
Do you guys want to know why?
Do you have to go to boot camp to get in the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, or the Coast Guard?
Yes.
Yes, you have to go through quite a bit of training. Just when you go out of school or whenever you join, everybody has to go through boot camp. It's 10 weeks, 11 weeks, 12 weeks, and then if you're going into any other type of specialized training, you go even further. You, go ahead.
So why did you quit the Air Force?
I'm not qualified to be a pilot, and in the Air Force, there's not a whole lot of other things to do except fly airplanes. But in the Navy, there's lots of options. So, Dana.
This is a comment.
Okay.
So my babysitter, it's been a long time since she's been babysitting me, but I know why. One reason, she is in the Army.
Okay.
Were you in any battles?
So you mean like haven't been shot at? Yes. Have I shot people? No.
But you were shot though?
So so you guys, as long as you've been alive, you probably heard there was a war in Iraq for a little while, and there was a war in Afghanistan. Okay, before that all started, and at the beginning of the war with Iraq, we had an embargo on Iraq. Because Iraq started a war back in 1990, a long time ago. They invaded their neighbor called Kuwait. And up until 2003, the Navy, we would board the ships that were taking, cargo into Iraq to make sure they weren't sneaking in weapons or they weren't sneaking out oil or things that they weren't supposed to be taking. So right at the end of the war there were some of the ships were trying to sneak in mines. And a mine in the Navy is big. I mean, it's giant. And the whole point is to sink a ship. You very quietly put it in the water and it floats. So we captured a ship that was trying to smuggle mines into Iraq so they could put the mines out. Now you remember Mr. Hicks was talking about how they went on the boats and they had to go off on the beach.
Yep.
So if one of those boats hits a mine, it would destroy the boat. So we captured the ship that was bringing the mines into Iraq for them to set up.
Are the mines
So they look like, have you ever seen like a, it kind of looks like a, you know how a puffer fish blows up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of looks like that, has these little things sticking out called horns. That's one kind. If the horn breaks, there's two chemicals mixed and that's what causes the mine to go off. That's the kind we found. You got any other question?
You said there are a few places where you fought besides the U.S.
Yes.
What are some other places you
Okay.
fought?
So I've been deployed to the Persian Gulf, which is near Iran and Iraq and Kuwait. I've been deployed to the Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, the Indian Ocean, Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan, South Korea, and then I was also involved, I don't know if you've all heard, in 2011 there was the tsunami in Japan. Yeah, so I worked with that too. I was on the admiral staff at the time. I've been been everywhere else. I've been Philippines, Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, China, Russia.
When you're in the service, you never know where you're going to go half the time. When you're in the Navy and if you're aboard a ship, you're going to go everywhere. So, I mean, like I said, I spent quite a few years on a carrier and we were all over.
Yep.
Have you ever been to India?
No, that's,
Yes, been to Cochin, down in the south. That's how it's called Kochi, is the correct name. Near,
Have you fought in any wars?
I was in during the Vietnam War.
Did you kill anyone?
No. No.
So I'm going to interrupt for a moment. I think I know why you guys are asking, because that must be a difficult reality to know that, right? To know that that's a really hard choice and that sometimes that's a choice that has to be made. So it's one of the reasons we really respect our veterans and our active military, because they do make hard choices. Okay, Sam, would you like to introduce your guest?
This is my uncle, and he served in the Air Force.
Ah, interesting. The reason we're finding that interesting is that Noyuri's dad started in the Air Force
Yeah.
and then switched to Navy, so we have a nice balance here. Okay, sorry.
go ahead, Mary.
I have two questions.
Sure.
So for Nadia's grandpa, have you ever been in the SEALs?
In the SEALs? No.
And how long did you actually fight in the Afghan war?
9 months.
Most of it.
I was there for 9 months. The training before was about 7 months, and I spent 9 months in Afghanistan. And it's interesting because the general in the area I was, he wasn't American. I was attached to the Polish Airborne Brigade. I was not serving with an American unit, which is just interesting. So,
When you fly around on planes, you just like fly around, or what do you do while you fly?
So I was very fortunate that in the Air Force I got to fly. As a matter of fact, only 2% of everyone in the Air Force ever even gets on a plane. But flying is probably one of the coolest things ever, because you gear up, you get on your plane, and then you have like all these electronics. So I was a radio operator on these planes. And you have a bunch of like electronics around you, and like you strap in, and like like if you're taking like a normal flight, you don't get to hear the radio, you don't get to hear the pilot talk to the tower and everything. When you're flying in the Air Force, you have your headset on, and you have your microphone, and you can hear everything that's going on the runway.
Do you shoot bullets?
No, I never had to shoot any bullets because my job was a linguist, so I just had to use my ears.
you serve a rivet joint?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so before you came in, we both introduced and explained what we did. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay. Yeah. So I spent 6 years in the Air Force, and my job was an airborne cryptologic linguist, and that sounds very complicated.
So we're the same specialty.
Oh,
Yeah.
crazy.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one in the Navy, one in the Air Force. We have the same.
Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't understand when you said yours.
Yeah, cryptologist. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't. So I interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
Oh no,
Go ahead.
that's fine. Things make a lot more sense. So yeah, I was an airborne cryptologic linguist in the Air Force, and so yeah, I did that for 6 years. I was trained as a Korean linguist, and ended up doing all of my missions in Spanish. So that's what happened.
Can you
And-
help us understand what that is?
Yes, so basically it would be my job to like monitor like radio communications and then listen to what people were saying and then report that to people that care a lot about it. Like for example, there might be troops on the ground that need to know if someone's going to come hurt them, and then it's your job to make sure that they're 100% aware of this and that they are well taken care of.
Did you have to learn Spanish?
Not really. No, I grew up in South America, so I kind of already knew it. I did have to learn Korean though.
Can you still speak it? Because at the end of their classes, she
Yeah, I can speak some still. Yeah.
Anj, I think that's you.
If you were flying a plane, has your plane ever got hit?
Oh no. My plane never got hit.
Those kind of planes that he's flown in, we call them rivet joints. In the Navy, we have ones we call them Ares 2 or EP3s. So in 2001, one of them was flying near Hainan Island in China, and the Chinese fighter plane came out to look at the Navy plane. It got too close and it hit him. So the Chinese pilot died. He crashed in the sea. But the EP3 had a crash land on Hainan Island, and the people on there had to stay in China for a little while. But other ones, long time ago, back when you were in, sometimes the Russians would shoot those planes down, even though they were not.
3 English, Spanish, and Korean.
3 also English, Russian, and Japanese.
1.
Yep. And they weren't in the military.
If you're, is it possible to ever have a situation like you're flying over a forest and there's some other soldiers in the trees?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, totally. People can hide wherever. So yeah, it's totally possible to have some sort of scenario like that.
I have a question for like the veterans in the Air Force. If you're like kind of what he said, if you're flying over a forest, can like some animal like a hawk try to like do some damage to your plane?
So actually, bird strikes are a thing.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and sometimes a bird will fly into your plane's engine, and it can cause enough damage to the plane that you have to land it, or it can take out your whole engine. So it's a good thing we have 4.
Yeah, that happened in Alaska. They had a plane. It was an AWACS. It was taken off once. And I think 2 of the engines, Canadian geese, were taking off. They flew through the flock, and they sucked them into 2 engines and wound up crashing. And in the Air Force, there's people who practice shooting dead chickens into glass on planes because they want to see what happens when a bird hits an airplane. It's a real job in the Air Force.
They do. They fire chickens.
It's a chicken gun.
Yeah, at
Real
planes to see how well the engine chews it up, to see if it can survive the bird strike. Chicken guns.
Did any of you see the news a couple of years back of that plane that landed in the Hudson River? They flew into a whole flock of geese. They took out both engines at the same time. They had no other choice but to land, and that was the safest place, was a water landing for that type of a plane.